gonna work.
It's working.
It's working. Here we go. It's setting up. Awesome. We are live on YouTube. Yay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Ascension sessions. Tonight is Tuesday, September 17th, and we are blessed to have two amazing powerhouses with us tonight. Beautiful Tracey Ash and Laurie McDonald. And we have a lot to cover. So I'm going to really quickly give you a little bit of a background on who they are. I'm sure most of you have heard of them, but in case you haven't, I'm going to give you a little quick background on them. And I also want to just quickly say, if you're in the YouTube chat, please, make sure you definitely say hello in the chat window, because I want to know who's watching. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window in all caps. And at the moment, we have Dexter with us, and we have all the way from Australia, which is so cool. Hello. And we also have Susie from Oregon, if I can out your state. So thank you guys for being with us so far. And I will keep an eye on the chat in case any questions come up during this interview. So we have Tracey Ash with us, and I'm going to read to you a little bit about her bio. Her work on evolution, ascension, and contact has taken her to the United Nations, honored by PSI Japan, and research by the EMOTO Foundation. In Contact, she receives time, date, and location for contact and owns an incredible footage library. Her ongoing work in pioneering training programs prepares humanity for contact. In September, this message went mainstream to an extraordinary 1 million in Tokyo Sports Post. That's amazing. She is the co-founder of Avatars of the Earth Gathering and the Next Level Spiritual Warfare and Mystic Arts Ancient Intelligence Mystery School. She is also an alchemist, metaphysician, channel, planetary grid expert, and more.
And yeah.
And more. Okay. And awesome. We also have with us the amazing Laurie McDonald. And by the way, both of these beautiful women have been on this show since the beginning. So I want to give you ladies a shout out and a thank you. I'm so honored and touched, because if it wasn't for you, this show may not have ever gotten off the ground, because, I was new to this arena and I wanted to hear from the experts, and they were gracious enough to say yes to me 2 years ago. So thank you so much for that. It's almost like an anniversary. So Laurie,
do not weep.
I will not weep. Laurie McDonald is a board certified clinical hypnotherapist at True You Hypnotherapy and an extraterrestrial abduction researcher. She is one of the 27 regression therapists listed on the MUFON mental health referral list for abduction regression. She is a support consultant to the research committee, FREE, F-R-E-E, which stands for the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. She is the board president for OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, and is the founder of the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group, one of California's largest UFO and abduction groups. Laurie has been the facilitator of several experiencer events and a host at Contact in the Desert. Woohoo! She is a lifelong experiencer, and her company, True You Hypnotherapy, has been the winner of Sacramento's Best of 7 years running by promoting mind-body integration through one-on-one sessions, empowerment workshops, experiencer group events and empowerment retreats. She recently was awarded the Global Health and Pharma GHP Alternative Medicine and Holistic Health Awards in 2018. She has appeared on a number of radio and TV shows, including the Discovery Channel. Laurie speaks internationally or using the extraterrestrial experience as a catalyst to expand consciousness through contact. That is such a big topic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So we're going to touch on that. Yes. So welcome to the show, Laurie and Tracey. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Yay.
Isn't it great to have good company?
It is. It's so fun. I want
it's so
more often with
nice
you.
to have a woman sitting next to me who is like got such an amazing resume. Wow.
Thank you. I feel the same.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, both of you are just, I'm in awe of both of you. You're both so passionate about your fields and the work that you do. You know, every time we speak, I learn so much from both of you, and it's amazing. You're both always on the go. Like, you're just always being invited to different countries, and you've both been invited to China, which I want to talk about later. And I guess they're having some kind of spiritual awakening in China, which is, you know, kind of sounds funny, right? Because they were kind of like the first ones, you know, thousands of years ago. So I want to talk more about that. But what we all have in common is that we're all drawn to Mount Shasta. We're all going to be in Mount Shasta for Avatars of the Earth gathering in just 10 days, which I can't believe it's 10 days away. So I would love to talk with you both about avatars. And I wanted to start by asking you, Tracey, why and how did Mount Shasta call to you? And what do you love about it? And why did you decide to have avatars there?
Well, the first time I visited Mount Shasta was the fleet experience. That was just incredible. And you were there and your son was there too. So Shasta being root chakra of the planet, a gateways, planetary grid is a special interest of mine. And where there are access to gateways, there's metaphysics, evolution, ascension. Mm-hmm. The reason why we chose Mount Shasta is I'm working the planetary grid in terms of the 7 gateways through into the central sun. So I've been directed through my prophecies to activate each of the 7 gateways. And so we have contact that is of a formidable level. And this also at the same time allows us to recalibrate not only lifetime, but lifetimes of wound. So it's a particular passion of mine to see that individuals wound weave during these times. And often our old paradigm approaches do not suffice in terms of what's required. So the nature of the deep wound. And so the events that we're creating mobilize both amazing speakers and educators. I'm extremely choosy about who I draw to the events, and also the dimensions are extremely choosy in terms of who's in and who isn't in terms of the events. With that comes music, it comes education. I'm drawn to community, but I'm especially interested in creating events where the speakers are first rate. And that doesn't often happen in this kind of situation. But I'm working in a fastidious way in terms of really selecting individuals who can actually work together as well. So the education's first rate, and it isn't based on nepotism or the fraternity or any of those things. It's based on people's caliber of work. And I see you're laughing. Yeah.
It's a
I'm
man's
just
world.
really, you know,
It's a man's world. What can I say? We're working to change that.
well, my heart is in getting the right information to people who seek help. And if people aren't trained well, or they're not in the right experience, whether it's a session or a lecture or a panel, I mean, people are given disinformation, and we need to ensure that people are given the best corridors of information, the best gateways. And that doesn't necessarily mean we need to show them to everyone who's popular. It just means we're taking them to the people who are credible, who've got a track record, who are badass in terms of their own field of endeavor, their chosen field. And I'm particular about quality. I'm a trained metaphysician myself. I'm a contactee. I'm an experiencer since childhood. I know who has had contact. I know who hasn't. I know who is a researcher. I know who isn't really an experiencer. And there is a big difference in terms of being able to offer help to individuals as well. So, you know, we're looking at a whole spectrum. We're looking at next level evolution. We're looking at metaphysics. We're looking at new gateways on time. We're looking at wound recalibration. You know, there's so many different areas that we need to reset currently. And we need to not just reference them as we have before. We need to reference them now in new ways, with a new education and with new experiences in terms of conferences, in terms of workshops. I mean, the new learning processes are quantum currently. So we don't need to stand before presenters who are textbooks. We need to stand before presenters who are in that quantum embodiment, which is indicative of someone who has had contact and indicative of someone who is in 5D, who is actually embodying the ascension and the codes that go with it. So that's my passion. And these are absolutely the bars that I work with and the bars that I work to in terms of the people I'm prepared to work with in the community. And for me, it's all measurable in terms of our consciousness, in terms of our light, in terms of what we're prepared to give in our own individual fields. And where we have givers, then it will take us into an entirely different direction in terms of our community, you know? And that's it. You know, I'm super interested in bringing people together who can mobilize and respect each other and work together based on a common goal, which is, of course, evolution, you know?
Yeah. And what I love about both of you is that you're both very interested in contact and ascension, you know, and how they affect each other. And Laurie, you know, you're an experiencer. You've worked with a ton of experiencers. And, you know, I'm excited to hear more about your workshop at Avatars. And, you know, I know your work, and I know like how authentic it is and how many people you've helped, you know, who really had nowhere else to go, and you've helped them tremendously. So, you know, I know why Tracey chose you to be part of Avatars. And I would love to hear more about your take on, and you were just in Mount Shasta too. So I want to hear a little bit about your experiences in Mount Shasta recently, and, you know, what you're bringing to Avatars as well.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you invited me. It's nice to be here. Yes, I did just come back from Mount Shasta. was incredibly beautiful. It was pristine. And I was attending a retreat, and it was somebody who has a very good record of channeling the Telosians or the Talos from the inner earth there. He also has some connection with the Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And everything actually was quite interesting. We went to Ascension Rock and everything was fine. Nice meditation. Went to Panther Meadow. Everything was normal until I went back to the barn that I was renting. It's been converted into an Airbnb. And we had some lights being turned on and some thumping. And we're beginning to think that it might have been a Bigfoot. We were out right on the forest on the edge of a horse pasture. And my head lay against the balcony wall, the outside wall. And it's like somebody threw a gigantic rock at it.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I was actually very interested in seeing what it was. And I got up, and when I woke, I realized that somebody had turned on all three of the main lights, which is not an easy thing to do. So we think that we experienced something paranormal. So the point is, there is energy in the root chakra of the planet. There's mystical energy, there's grounding energy, but there's also a bit of a playfulness. It's a wonderful atmosphere where you can sort of be at ease in both your mind and body if you're sensing out into the environment. It's a wonderful place. Can't wait to return.
Yeah, it is. It does have that playful energy. In fact, the last time I was there, or maybe it was the time before, it was snowing, and me and my family went up to Bunny Flats, which is like as far as you can go when it's covered in snow. And we parked in the parking lot and we just started walking up the road. And we were just playing with snow. And, you know, my son was probably about 7. And all of a sudden we heard thump, 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 and a growl. And like I heard it, but it didn't register right away. And my husband goes, "Cheri, did you hear that?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I did hear that." And I'm like 99% sure it was a Bigfoot, because that's the way they communicate. They knock on trees, they growl. And it was very playful because we were in a playful state. Like we were just playing with snow and kind of goofing around. And I felt like they gave us a little shout out.
You know, I think that the energy is everything in attraction. First off, being very clear on what energy you'll resonate with, making sure that that's really of a higher consciousness, something based in love. Otherwise, you know, you do see a lot of people running around out there open to anything, and there's a little bit of danger in that.
Yeah.
So, more than a little. Okay. So to be very clear in the intention and what we attract out there, it's totally beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very excited about having a larger group of like-minded people, because it's always been my experience then, if the energy is balanced and the fear is under control for those who may still experience fear, then that sometimes interferes. But setting the correct intention and a proper invitation, you might be surprised what you find.
Yeah, I agree. My background, I trained at the College of Psychic Studies in London, and I led research groups in the maybe the early 2000s. And protocol, whether it's paranormal or contact, whatever it is, it lends itself to us creating groups that work incredibly safely. Mm-hmm. Now, that brings me into the way that protocol is set up in terms of any kind of dimensional experience. You know, wherever we are, there's protocol in terms of sites, in terms of gateways. It's important to have some training within the context of our connection, so that our awareness is indeed switched on and we're able to detect and choose correctly within the context of the choices of the gateways, the dimensions that we're working with, etc. So my work has always been massively interested in how we can achieve the best levels of contact and the dimensions or the gateways that are indeed going to accelerate our evolution and accelerate our ascension and take us beyond the density of the pain and the suffering that often people can be attached to. And I think, you know, so much is based around experiencing in terms of gateways. And what we often forget is the training. So there's a lot of experts in our field, there's a lot of experiencers in our field who aren't particularly well trained. And we need to get people into training that is good practice. We need to get people initiated. And the only way we can get people initiated is to have very well trained facilitators.
Well, protocol is everything.
Yeah.
Not only
Training,
in the
protocol.
approach, but once you make contact with an otherworldly being, whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional, there are very strict protocols that have to be followed so that it's a respectful communication, so that you understand the intent of the being sovereign, understanding yourself and doing your emotional work. The thing is accepting everything about yourself so that you can create change. You cannot change what you cannot accept. So with the desire to become better, to have that higher communication, we have to be aware of the limitations in order to know where to correct and to create the appropriate protocol. And one of the main things that I think is the first name. When asked to have contact, when they greet you, they must address you by your name. They're not calling you by your name, then they're indicating right from the start superiority or not a mutual contact. And so because there are so many extraterrestrials, and the common denominator among all of them is us, the humans.
Yes.
With that, we have to be more selective in whom we communicate with, because there is the opportunity for manipulation if we're unclear of protocol or don't understand the universal laws. So although it's a very exciting field to be in, it's actually more than that. It is history happening as we speak, where our world, our reality is expanding. People are beginning to sense that multidimensionality within themselves. They're sensing that potential that they've not yet been able to hit. They're realizing that they're in pain. You know, the Buddha said, we change when we hurt. And so by recognizing our own emotional energy and pain, we begin to create those steps into self-mastery and actualization so that we're in a place to communicate with a higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's really interesting. These gateways really support the deeper level wound work and then allows us to initiate the bridges that allow us the authentic experiences and experiences interdimensionally, transdimensionally as well, which really take us into those mega shifts within ourselves. So there isn't any going back in terms of who we once were. And that really allows us to heal successfully. I think, you know, people seek in this field because they want to awaken and they want to truly heal. And I've been in this arena, almost 30 years now. And I see so many individuals who are disappointed, but they keep going because they have hope. And I'm afraid we need so much help currently to really maneuver people from this web of manipulation and web of distractions and web of manipulations as well. So our contact has to be of the highest caliber, because it's there we have help. And it's there we can be guided and instructed successfully if we're initiated and led the right way successfully as well. So
I, for one, do not believe in hopelessness. I believe that there's always a next empowered step. I know that we can grow, that we can heal, that we, in fact, have the power to move into ourselves and self-correct, to create that change, that idea. The magnetism of us directly affects our reality. And when we begin to master our mind, our body, our health, we are mastering our reality. In doing so, we're creating a unity within ourselves that makes us capable, truly capable of unconditionally loving, supporting all those around us. Right now, people are seeking union because everything is deliberately divided. All of our experiences are external. All of our goals are outside of the self. When the truth is, everything is within. It's about an experience. It's about our intuition. It's about the inner self, the deeper part and the higher parts of our mind. This is our opportunity to not only expand our consciousness, but to create reality. Humans create reality. The first show that I did, I can't tell you over the last couple of years how many people have contacted me and asked me to define the word human. And because it meant something to them. Hue is from the measurement of light. Hue is how we measure the depth or saturation of light. Man is short for manifestation, to be embodied, to come into the physical. A human is a light embodied being. And when you know what you are, then you know what you're capable of. And so it's about empowering. It's about tapping that multidimensional self. It's about taking that next step in history to join our cosmic families, because we're right there.
Right. And
right there. Look,
you guys are amazing. You're already answering some of my questions. I know.
No more tea for me.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was like, how can we bring more unity to the contact community? And that kind of rhymes, because I feel like
by writing poetry, darling.
I know, because there's so much division and separation in this small community right now. And I think it's intentionally designed. I think that it's not a coincidence that this is happening, but I feel like some people just can't get out of it. They just get sucked into this tornado, of drama and division. Like, what would you say to those people to remind them to come back to unity?
You got to check your motivation. What is motivating you? Why are you moving in this direction? What is it that's, where's the payoff? What are you getting out of it? I personally, I'm in service of humanity. 5 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. I'm in
7 days a week, baby. 7 days.
We're doing the work, okay? So for me, I know my motivation and I know my place. I'm in service. I chose to do this. It's work that needs to be done to help the wounded, to show them a way to heal, to self-accept, to begin to love. When we can do that with ourselves, and there's no need to worry about the dysfunction of the community. The loose apples will fall from the tree. The people who are sincere and dedicated will continue to move on. They'll learn the misuse of ego and power, and they'll understand the right use of will and direct their energy that way. That way, we all win. This is what it's all about, you know, being in a place of non-judgment, allowing a person to do their thing without a judgment, but just allowing them to unfold. But in our community, there is a lot of dysfunction and finger pointing and maybe even a little backstabbing. I try not to get too involved in that because I believe that what you feed grows.
Right.
And so by not feeding it, it won't grow. And so on one hand, we have to address it, but not play into it. That's the thing. Check your motivation, stay in your integrity, walk your talk. That's the best we can do.
For me, it's also about recognizing there are certain sacred values that we should uphold as human beings. And of course, we're human, and of course, we make mistakes, but we need to take responsibility for the mistakes that we make. And that's an important part of us honoring our own spiritual journeys and honoring the journey with others, so we all have enough space to transform and evolve together. I'm always really open, so my verdict on people is always open until I see behavioral actions otherwise. And that's how I navigate the politics of community.
Well, that's what you have to
stay
do.
Open.
You have to use your voice to serve it.
I'm much more interested in where my mission is taking me, and where that, as you said, Laurie, you know, service, the power of our mission is sovereign and sacred, and where there is truth, politics and manipulations and hijacks can't touch it. So we can address, of course, the politics, we can be involved in it. It lowers our frequency. So it is a huge distraction. And if our goal is truth, and our goal is these incredible gateways of experience and contact and proof of it, and answering all these great mysteries of our existence, so we're not tangled in the false matrix.
Right. You can
the
tell
politics
what feels
aside.
right.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about what feels right. You can feel that both gross and subtle energies of a situation, and begin to understand where the right motivation is, where the truth is really being sought, and where people are being able to speak that truth in a non-judgmental way. Because, you know, everybody's truth is a little bit different. Everybody's on their own path, and so it should be. It's always sort of astounded me that there's that lack of support in the community, because the community has been so ostracized for all of these years. You would think that finally, when we're beginning to get a voice, that we would come together even stronger. But
I agree.
some type of psyop, psychological operations, or if there's trip ups in the matrix, you know what? I have faith that we'll figure it out. I trust that we will do what's right. I do believe now that we're learning and taking the right steps, and we're not afraid to fall, because we know how to get back up. And really, that's what it's all about, being humble enough to make a mistake, or brave enough to make a mistake, and to carry on. Of course, we're human. We're perfectly imperfect, but that's what the third dimensional reality is all about. And as we're in that higher third dimension, and the universe is expanding, and we're moving into the fourth, we will begin to gain control of our emotional energy. We must, or we won't ascend. I think the big matrix manipulation is in the fact that there are so many multiple dimensions, both vertical and parallel, where we have many hundreds and hundreds of parallel third dimensional realities. We don't want to hit a false light that says, oh, you have to come back and review this, because you could end up in a continuous loop of 3D. Ascension means, in chronological order, to move up from the third into the fourth, into the fifth, not this trick that seems to be happening to so many of the souls being earthbound. And they come in confused. And I think, but there's a lot of confusion happening. We have some time issues and time slipping when these portals open and the energies come through. I mean, the portal work that I did, so I went from the root chakra of the earth to the crown chakra, CM Reap Anchor Watch. And wow, can you feel the difference? Mm-hmm. So all of these energies are beginning to align and change. And as they do so, we are taking that ascension step. Some people are going willingly, and some people may not go until another time. And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. And then the frequencies of that playing out that tapestry allows those who are ready to truly propel themselves. So we have these incredible full stops in terms of, here is the closure in terms of where I've been and what I've been repeating in terms of the wound, and we're ready to surrender that. And then those individuals who perhaps have not got to that full stop, they become incredible markers, signposts in terms of showing us where we've been. And then we have the fearlessness to step into the unprecedented and into the unknown, because Laurie is an alchemist. Right. I mean, so an alchemist speaks really differently to someone who's a vocationally trained healer, because an alchemist knows how to play all the realities to the advantage of the infinite one. Mm. Yeah.
And to the one who needs to be healed.
Yeah. So, when we get into the infinite one, then we're dealing with the timelines, and those timelines can also be played with as an alchemist. Mm-hmm. And I'm particularly interested in how we access not just the future dimensions, but we access the future parts of ourselves. And that becomes a necessary part of another initiation. But first we have to hop some frequency fences. Yeah.
When a person asks for a true initiation, they will receive that. You can prepare yourself. You can decide within your subconscious and conscious mind that no matter how scary, you're going to take that next step and you're going to prepare yourself, and you can ask for an initiation into a higher way of being. And what will happen is you'll have some form of what might be called a mega or paranormal experience, but then the energy inside of the person moves. And when that begins to shift, reality actually does change. The reality is no longer the same. And when we do use the right words, with the right formula, with the right frequency, we can change the DNA of a person. Absolutely. With the power of words. And I see it. I'm so incredibly grateful to bear witness to people doing their work every day and being able to catalog and mark that change and see somebody. It's as though they've unzipped a wetsuit and their truer self emerges.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, really.
That's
And that it's powerful, and
Mhm.
anyone can do that. And one of the first things you have to do is to know yourself
Yes.
and accept it so you can change it.
Thank you. That's beautiful and amazing. And, you know, on the topic of fear and creating our own realities. So at Avatars, we're going to have amazing Skywatches every night. And I imagine that there's going to be at least one or two people who've never had any kind of contact experience or seen a UFO or anything like that. So for those watching who may not have had any kind of experience, it's really important that you don't come with fear in your heart, right? So what would you say to them? I know you're going to facilitate and you're going to be there holding our hand the whole way. So it's going to be amazing and fearless, but they might be worried about it right now. Like, oh my God, I'm going to this thing. I might see a UFO, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to them?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because we've got the workshops that are primers all day. So they're all carefully woven together for the build in terms of the preparation for contact in the evening. And then we have these extraordinary powerhouses who don't normally come together for a Skywatch. So we have like,
Right.
it's going to be pretty, just a little bit amazing, right? So we've got like you, we've got Laurie, we've got Laura, we've got Brad, we've got Brett, we've got Nico, we've got Scarlett, you know, we've got Brooks Agnew as well. We've got really some formidable forces in our community who don't normally come together for Skywatch, right? Because we don't normally set these events in that backdrop. And, you know, that's one of my special interests, to really create events that are next level experiences. I mean, and what's going to happen when we do a Skywatch of that nature, where we're bringing several keys together who would normally host an exceptional Skywatch. Yeah, that's going to invoke some pretty interesting powerhouse gateways. I mean, the initiation's going to be formidable.
Yeah, and it's at Mount Shasta.
Yeah,
the root.
So it's, you know, for me, it's as much of, let's see what happens in our community, because that is one sure way to get over politics and start working together. So we get the research and we get the proof and we get the facts and we go, okay, this is what we have. And you know what happened when we premiered the film in San Francisco. Some people embraced it. Some people wanted to completely brush it under the carpet. Why? Because they want to claim the mantle of ascension or contact. And it's not about that. It's about how we all come together and how we all get the legitimate evidence. And then we also increase the ascension and evolution of those individuals who are seeking just that. And then we move into what I see as opening these gateways so that we can rebirth the myths of our ancient times. And that's, of course, the return of the sky gods. It's a return of the mythical. It's the return of the dimensional. And it's the return of extraterrestrial star races living amongst us and guiding us. That's what's coming next. And that's what I find amazing.
We'll be guiding each other a little bit. In fact, like I said, the majority, all of them have us in common for a reason. And in fact, that soul, our eternal light, our ability to ascend and to transcend both space and time, to move in and out of our body and maintain our full consciousness. These are particular skills that are based, fundamental skills of humanity. They will bring us other things, but as we meet, what we'll learn to do is to practice that equanimity, to be in total control of our emotional energy, regardless of the chaos. So maybe it's not so much of what we look at in the sky these days, but what lands on the ground and physically manifests to communicate with us. And I have had the face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact with extraterrestrials, which has obviously been a great motivator for me to continue my work. And so when I can say easily over 1,000 cases that I've handled, it's the experiencers that hold those answers, each and every one of them, that bring back the tidbits of information that allow me to do the psychological profiling on the extraterrestrial, so we know how to create a protocol. You know, sometimes it's not, listen, there's a lot of misinterpretation in speaking with telepathy. They'll say something to me and I'll totally misinterpret it because the word in English that I'm getting is got like 5 definitions. And so there are, and it's true. I mean, once when they told me I passed, I asked them, did I die? I know, very nice. Okay, I'll admit it. It's all good. But, you know, because there's more than one definition and I misinterpreted what they said. And
that's really interesting, hey, because I experienced the same thing. There's a quantum language that's required.
Yes.
So everything about who we are, it needs to be upscaled so we can comprehend the intelligence that we're dealing with.
That's right.
You know, that's what I'm fascinated in. I mean, in terms of the arena, I mean, I've got no interest in politics. I mean, I've just got interest in what the hell could happen in terms of intelligence on the planet if more of us have the direct contact, which Laurie's describing, the on the ground contact. I've also had it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important. You know, that form of contact leaves no doubt. You know, my contact has been lifelong too. And it wasn't until I was about 15 when, you know, I'm seeing this like light being in the form of a woman, really. And I'm saying, okay, you know what? I just want to make sure that if I'm really seeing this, then I need you to like put your hand in mine. I want more physical manifestation and I need to know. And really, in that moment, that's exactly what they did. I felt that full, absolute contact, warmth, everything heightened beyond belief, as if my senses were increased, amplified somehow. And so I knew. And so I've been able to carry on that without having that self-doubt. And unfortunately, people who don't get the support or can't speak to people because they've been shut down, they begin to doubt themselves. And that energy begins to run around in their mind and they wonder, did I make that up? Is it even true? Or they'll push it down and maybe forget about it. And actually, this is slowing down their own awakening, their own path. So there is a lot of misconception. But I'm very happy to have done the psychological profiling on about 6. I know that's not very many. Maybe 7, I'm not completed, but about 6 for sure extraterrestrials where I have an idea of their behavior, of what we can expect, how they're going to react. And that little bit of psychological profiling helps us to know how to behave, how to approach them. Ones we can touch, ones we should never even try to touch. I mean, so we need to have these sort of outlined. So when people do have their experiences, they have somewhere to go. I mean, the whole idea about being 21st century leadership, or to have that understanding of taking that next step, is to clear the path for those behind us, so that they can move there swiftly with less trouble. That's our job. That's all we're doing, in creating events, creating workshops, speaking, touring, wherever country we're invited to. And the spiritual aspect and to contact is synonymous to me. If you are not using your extraterrestrial experience as a catalyst to your own consciousness expansion, then you're hung up and you're like a dog chasing your tail going, what ETs, how come me, what type of craft? Not nearly as important as the later effects it has on the consciousness.
Was it silver? Was it shiny?
Could it have been a cigar shape? You know, very phallic. Just kidding.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so,
also, Laurie, like, and making it okay to talk about.
oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge thing. Like, you know, we're making it okay for our kids to talk about this stuff.
That's right. You know,
But also, yeah, also though, I think often we are entrained to look in the wrong places. So, for example, when contact is taking place, sites, gateways will go live. If you're only looking to the skies, then you're missing what's actually taking place here as well. So, you know, what I experience in terms of contact is the gateways go live. So there are anomalies on the ground as much as there's dimensional activity phenomena in other areas of the landscape as well. And then there's synchronicities in terms of downloads and telepathy and activations and spontaneous healings and spontaneous synchronicities. You might have channelings that are occurring in bilocations as well. So there are so many different anomalies. I mean, it's much bigger than those in the third dimensional attached research actually perceive and think. You know, that's, you know, it's big, isn't it, Laurie?
It's huge. I mean, each dimension plays a very important role in understanding the multidimensional self, or the alpha persona inside of the soul. We know that when we're outside of the body, having an out-of-body experience, that we maintain our full consciousness, we know what we are. But that's only partly true, because in that, we're able to push, a gentle push, but it's a push that pushes you out of time and space. And you can see the dimensions shift. In fact, if you help your mind move into it, there's parts of their ecology, you can pull parts of their history, depending on how you're sensing with a ET. You would be surprised on what you come back. Your mind could flood with a beautiful countryside. Their countryside wouldn't look anything like our countryside. The colors might be incredibly difficult to explain to someone. But when you're out there and in that multidimensional self, or in another dimension, we are perceiving differently. And then it has to be filtered back through the consciousness of the third dimensional body. And so it becomes limited again. So what we need is that gentle, free flowing of energy. And some of us are striving. I mean, I think that with my own training and my own work, my own spiritual path, I feel privileged really to have seen what I've seen, to have seen the other beings, and to not feel fear, but to feel unconditional love. And then for them to show me the ascension, at least the next 2 steps, so that I have that idea, so I wasn't tricked back in. I mean, I'm amazed at what help and guidance is there. Although the message sort of like with me, at least when they're working with me, is they don't give me any answers, okay? They let me do the work, they encourage me, and they make me believe that I can find it, and I do. And that's really what a good parent does, is you allow your child to learn. You can't give them everything. You know, one of the biggest lessons I learned as being a parent, and of course I'm a grandmother now, and was not, you know, the natural instinct is to try to give them everything that you never had to make everything good. But the truth is, you need to listen to that being and give them what they need to make it good for them. And we find that it's not about us at all.
Right.
It's about our ability to give and let them stand on their own 2 feet. So the biggest desire for a parent and a therapist is when your child and when your client no longer needs you. And that's when you know you did your job. It's bittersweet. But you want, like when I leave the earth, I want to know that I left everybody that I worked with and everybody that I raised competent, that they can stand on their own 2 feet. And that's really what it's all about. So they don't have that dependency, but they have the personal empowerment, the strength, the courage from the heart, the core of us, to take their next empowered step and to stand strong.
That's beautiful.
See, that's a really formidable place to come from, and it has huge integrity. You know, that also brings questions around vocational training, because in order to reach that level of service, Laurie, you have to have done some immense work on yourself. It's also connected with your destiny. It's connected with your sacred seeding. I mean, what Laurie's describing, we're describing paths of awareness and intelligence that are developed over lifetimes rather than any kind of vocational training. Yeah.
Right. Well, at this point, I'm on the planet because I chose to be. I love the humans. I love the human condition. I love the potential. I love the creativity, the music, the dance, the laughter, the food. I just love the human experience. There's just so much beauty. Okay. But there's also the other side of it. And we do learn, and we learn sort of karmically. And I believe I've done my emotional work, and the difference between, I guess, karma and dharma is when we feel that our integrity falls under dharma, then we're here to teach. And it's just to teach what you know and to help people heal. Karma, you're still learning your lessons, you're still suffering. I'm filled with joy. I am so happy. You know, a couple of years ago, I lost my little sister, and then a year later, I lost my big sister. And my little sister said to me before she died, she said, Laurie, just how is it with all of the trauma that you deal with and everything that you've been through, we've all been through. She said, how is it that you're happy? How can you be happy and positive? And she was dying when, you know, she asked me this, and it was completely sincere. And I told her, because it's a choice. Right now, whatever's happening, I'm helping to happen. Right now, nothing bad is happening. Right now, we have enough. We're good enough. We'll be enough. We'll have enough time, enough money. Everything we need will be taken care of when you understand that the multidimensional eternal self.
Yeah.
And I'm happy because I'm filled with gratitude. And it's a wonderful place to be. Doesn't mean that sometimes I don't feel sad, but it just doesn't last long. Because there's always something, you know, every day there's something that is beautiful.
Yeah. Laurie, when you work with your clients in a hypnotherapy session, how often or how many times have interdimensional beings come in the room? Like the ones that maybe, you know, they interacted with that you're having this session about?
Yes, today's Tuesday. It's been 3 times this week. And I'm not kidding. I absolutely am not kidding. And
almost always is your answer.
it happens a lot because the energy is safe. And you know what? I hear a lot and not exactly sure how to take it, but they tell me that the ETs that they deal with are very aware of me. They're very aware of me, that they know what work I'm doing, and they show up in there, and they seem to be pleased. There have been occasions, many occasions, when I'm dealing with a person who's had an extraterrestrial experience where the experience is seemingly negative. They've had an experience with a gray. It feels like abduction. There's genetics being harvested, and they're fear-based. But they're misinterpreting the agenda of that extraterrestrial, which isn't evil or nefarious. It's agenda-oriented. It has a specific agenda, and we are just a part of that agenda. So don't take it so personally. They don't really mean to freak us out. And sometimes, you know, they'll go out of their way to not freak us out. But there are certain races that should not be interfering with us because there's a loophole in one of the universal laws. And so since some of the ETs have the ability to manipulate the delta and the theta brainwaves, or they use something like a delta transmitter, it puts a person in a simulated dream state. So we become compliant and go along with them. We're not making clear conscious choices. Mm-hmm. And we're just being manipulated. But until we expressly say, no, I don't want to deal with you, I don't want to have anything to do with you, they're allowed to do that. So we have to be able to have some ability to maintain our own consciousness and to stop the extraterrestrials that may be interfering. Because the truth is, if they were to approach humanity and say, listen, we're this being, we're from this place, this is our situation, and we would like X amount of humans to donate to genetics to help us, I can assure you the line would be never ending. But to come without permission, without using the name, like a thief in the night, creating emotional distress isn't healthy. Not saying it's evil, and I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's unhealthy, and it's agenda oriented, and it's self-serving. So this is the time where we have to use our discernment and rise above that form of manipulation, and again choose which ETs will continue to have a relationship with.
See,
so
that's
hurting them. They're just freaking them out.
Mm-hmm. See, this is interesting. When we go back to certain parameters of ancient knowledge and the protocol of the ancients, for example, you know, one of my immense areas of interest is Egypt. So we hit, I know it's yours too, because I can read where your timeline.
Yeah.
This is what's wonderful about the sacred women.
That's
returning.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, this is part of what's happening now and going to happen in our communities, where what we know we can disclose. And of course, it is what comes next. And also, because we've been trained in the protocol of the void and the protocol of metaphysics and 0 points, and in meticulous sacred feminine, we really know how to handle the dimensions, the intelligence, and we know how to handle everything that we come in contact with without fear.
Right. And it's really all about that equanimity and being able to stop, check in with yourself and say, okay, is this fear because I'm in imminent danger? Or is this a fear simply based on an adrenaline rush and the unknown? And if we say, oh, why? Okay, it's the adrenaline rush and it's the unknown. What do I do next to maintain control? And there is a next step. There's always a next empowered step.
And the gateways, in terms of me, when I've been called, for example, to the Great Pyramid for large downloads in terms of the prophecies, which take me to then the next gateway, it is important in terms of hitting the right frequency signatures so that you are through the central sun. And that also really maintains the highest intelligence, the highest caliber of intelligence, pro-evolutionary guardians of humanity. And that's very important that we get this right, and what we're attached to in terms of our own politics and our own high drama is what will show up in what we endeavor to connect with in terms of our contact. So as the ancient Egyptians in their prophecies described, we're at a pivotal point in our evolution where we cannot make the same mistakes that have been previously made in our histories. So this is a massive time in terms of a return to light, a return to one, and a return to contact. But the gateways play an important part of this. So how we maintain frequency is through the technologies, and I asked you recently to ask someone who is an alleged expert on Egypt about the role of minerals in the ascension process. Now, this is really important. The technologies of ancient Egypt, the architecture is designed to magnify the gateways. That in turn magnifies our consciousness and unifies our frequency, which allows us the discernment so that we can indeed know truth in this dimension, so we know our path. And then when we have contact, we are meticulous and discerning too. So the parameters of our guidance is impeccable rather than experimental. So when I ask questions about what people know in the field, I want to know what they know. And if they don't know why certain minerals are in place at certain sites and certain gateways across the planet, they are not experts on Ascension or ancient Egypt. So
yeah, I think you're right. It's understanding the Earth's body, like the human body, and that our grid energy and their grid energy all have to align in these places. Yeah, absolutely. It's there, and there is actually a sacred, special, hidden mineral
in Egypt.
Well, it was pre-Egypt, Atlantis, Lemurian. There is one specific mineral that will continue to show up, and this will help brighten the doorways, so to speak. It's like a porch light. How's that? They're going to turn light on, so to speak. Yeah, but seeing the dimensions shift, I mean, seeing to two worlds, like they overlap, and you're looking at like something in this world, but seeing another world behind, that's, it can be a little bit mind-blowing. And when that's the case, I mean, all you have to do is like reassure yourself.
However, it's also about stepping up and into those experiences, because when we have legitimate experiences, then those give us more hope and they propel us on and on. What you spoke about earlier about the challenges and what you've experienced. Every single challenge that I've had within the context of my own journey is an opportunity to create an answer or a solution. So in terms of my timeline, my timelines and my experiences, then everything that I have experienced, resolved, and processed as wisdom then becomes an ultimate key in how I work with someone in my practice.
Well, some
So again,
accelerated learning path. There are many people on the planet right now who have chosen an accelerated learning path where they'll experience every trauma practically that you can think of. They'll be thrown out of their comfort zones. They'll be pushed to the limit. Some of these kids might be born and told they are dyslexic or ADD. This is an opportunity to break away from falling into the mainstream conditioning or brainwashing. Each and everything that happens to us is just that opportunity. It's nothing bad, like the Gnostics taught. Our experiences are not good or bad. They are simply experiences. And once we begin to glean the knowledge from them, we carry on and take that knowledge with us. It's that emotional energy of good and bad in some contexts that confuses the human. And this is where the ego comes into play. And people will feel very special and chosen in the extraterrestrial community. And of course, that's a straight up manipulation. And they'll eventually outgrow it. I've seen it. It's like the pendulums way over here. Now I'm so special. And you know what? Everybody's special. But don't get fooled into something telling you that you're going to have to swing back down. And tomorrow you're still going to have to do the dishes and brush your teeth and let's keep our feet on the ground here. And so we have to be very careful that our experiences don't play to corruptness of power or ego. And unfortunately, some people have used energy from their experience to elevate themselves in a way that makes them better or more special. And of course, that is the complete opposite of what we're looking for in an authentic experience. What we're looking for is there's a certain level of humility in being face to face with an otherworldly being, and to feel so vulnerable and evaluated or judged on some level, but to be there, bare open, regardless of what they may come to, you're still there trying to learn, trying to understand where and what we're doing together, because we are all in this together. Together is how we'll move out of it as well.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of interesting too, in terms of the time phases and how the design of the Ascension is also, of course, connected with its current 26,000 year cycle. So we haven't had it as good in terms of our opportunity to transform and awaken. So the opportunity is incredible if we can just stand still and gather ourselves and our attention so that we can understand and manage our attachments. And this is pretty easy. I mean, if we are assigned to spiritual journeys, then our attachment should be spiritual. Our attachment should be sovereign. Our attachment should be to contribution. It should be towards values, valuing other people as well. So this is really easy stuff, which of course is horrendously difficult to underpin. as a consistent reality when you're prone to the entanglements, you're prone to lower density thoughts and feelings because you're always in this reality slide. So interesting times, but I'm going to go back to it. The planetary grid assists us because it's at these gateways that we are consistently reminded of unity and all the goddamn timelines. And also what we also have access at the gateways is the histories of our planet and the truth, which also allows us to then recalibrate our consciousness as well at the same time. So the ancients knew this. The monuments, the architecture were laid down to magnify this laying down of the histories for future times. And this is what we're showing up again in, which I find extraordinary. And many of us are showing up and remembering who we were and remembering the technologies and remembering the sites as they were then.
There were incredible ancient technologies, and I do remember some Egyptian ancient technologies that, I don't know, it was like lucid dream information that came, but it was the obelisks with the gold or silver caps really acting like antennas or like a wireless cell tower for a specific energy, and gathering the 0 point energy or the scalar energy through anti-gravitics. There was water that used to funnel up under one of the larger pyramids. I remember that it created light. I can't tell you the specifics, but I do remember that it was basically, from my recollection, it would have been similar to what we would call a power substation, and that there was a form of technology. But you know, they do give us hints all the time about ancient technologies that we see in Egypt in particular, and even in ancient Sumeria and Mesopotamia with some of the gear that they wore. Through bracelets. They're kind of like smartwatches, really. It looks like a flower on it. And they acted somewhat like a smartwatch. I'm not kidding. Yeah. And they're in all of these ancient glyphs and carvings. And we'll see that many governments, when we moved out of the kingdoms into countries, they attacked a lot of these sites and to break down their ancient teachings. So even when I was in Laos and I was walking around the plain of jars where the giants once walked, just off the Ho Chi Minh Trail, there's all of these huge craters where bombs were dropped to try to destroy these jars. And it's surprising that there are so many that remain. But all around the world, we'll see the destruction of these sites because there is a agenda to prevent us from learning that fundamental information that was laid in stone, carved in stone, and left for us to figure out.
What were the jars used for? Do you know?
Well, they were said that the giant jars were used by the giants, and that they held water and herbs, and they're
utilitarian.
They're absolutely gigantic. But then Laos not being very far from Vietnam, I've worked with a couple of marine experiencers who saw a portal open, and the beings coming out were absolutely gigantic. They were very tall, 18-foot beings, very big. And then at the same time, anything that flew out, an insect or whatever it looked like, they said bugs that looked like the size of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Wow.
So is it so difficult to think that maybe in some second dimensional reality, everything is very large? I mean, last summer I was called up to the Indian reservation in Humboldt County because the tribes people were seeing a whole other tribe of little tiny naked people.
Wow.
And then they would like disappear. And this is being reported on the Pueblos and on the res all across America.
And in Hawaii, there's the little people in Hawaii too.
You know, so we have very small and extremely tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I myself had saw one woman that I basically was up to her kneecap, just maybe above her kneecap. And it was like neck all the way back to see her. But she was doing the same thing, like, oh my God, I can't believe how small you are. Tracy, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. I mean, so there's that bit of just a slight feeling of a time distortion when things like that happen, and our consciousness slows down a bit as it processes, but then we come back and we fully are in these experiences. But the different types of beings just right here on our planet or coming through portals all over is mind-blowing. If you can only imagine
what are they doing here? What are they doing?
Well, actually, that particular time was an accident.
Okay.
The portal was accidentally opened during the Vietnam War. And for 2 nights, both the Vietnamese and the Americans battled UFOs. It was General Brown who came out with ABC, NBC, CBS. He called all of them and did a press conference and saying, we fought these UFOs. And then, of course, they squashed that information. But if you do a little research online, General Brown, Vietnam War, you'll see where we literally battled these, and they did come out of a portal. I went into the jungle in Vietnam to that portal, and then another one in Cambodia, another one in Laos. There are portals all over, and somehow I feel drawn. Even up in the Wudang Mountains in China, I was teaching spirituality, and there did feel like there's this portal energy near the mountains, and it was different though than anything I've experienced before. Mm-hmm. So where do the portals go? Everywhere. Okay.
I've heard that a lot of the wars we start are for portals. They're not for oil or for resources or for religious differences. I've heard that they're for these ancient technologies and these sacred gateways that they want control over. They want to get it and research it.
I do not know why they call Mars the planet of war. Earth is the planet of war. We have had a war continuously for over 2,000 years, and many of them are on spiritual or religious sites. And you'll see one temple, a Hindu temple, turned into a Buddhist temple turned into a Christian site, and they fight over these, and then they cap that energy, that ley line, to try to redirect the energy, or most likely to kill the energy, to squelch it, to stop it from allowing the people to learn, because they can't can't control the people once they're empowered.
Right.
And the information from these places will empower the people, and that doesn't serve many governments. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I've heard that they put a lot of churches on the ley lines.
Yeah.
To protect those ley lines.
Synagogues.
Protect meaning keep them to themselves.
Templars, all of them, and even some pyramids were built because the energy in a trihagathon, when it moves up into the pyramid, the energy moves, it gets condensed into the upper third, and it becomes extraordinarily strong and condensed and measurable, therefore usable. And so they do want to use these energies for not the betterment of humanity.
And Tracey, what about the alabaster bowls? Do you know what those were used for?
Of course.
I'm sure you do. Share with us, please.
So I know what you're referencing. You're referencing the site of Abu Ghraib, which is super close to Giza, and it's super close to Abasir, which is a solar temple. Abu Ghraib is an extraordinary site. It has the most incredible hotep, which has white Egyptian calcite, and it's a powerhouse in terms of evolution, in terms of even contact. It's a gateway. You can't get access to this particular site. I drew this site down in my 20s. I had a past life regression, and the facilitator couldn't take me into any other lifetime, and I swung into this lifetime, and I found myself looking down at my feet. I was a man, and I had waist length hair, and I was shining. Wow. And I knew at that point that I was an Egyptian priest. My work was underground at Abu Ghraib, and I drew down the entire site. Later on in my career, I visited Abu Ghraib, and when I got there, I was so excited because, of course, I was home. I had my technologies at my fingertips. And of course, the Bloody Antiquities team had removed my alabaster bowls, my alabaster basins, which were set in the temple floor and were underground at the time. Now, when I started, pardon?
You remember the underground tunnels that went
yes.
from there into, okay.
Yes. And so the underground tunnels, I also know they link with the Serapeum in Saqqara also. I've been to Egypt about 70 times. So I know my way around. I know where my tombs are. Mm-hmm. But just backtracking, the matrix of calcite bowls at Abu Ghraib were utilized in these incredible ascension processes, evolution processes, which were all designed to accelerate the consciousness of the human beings I was working with. I was, of course, extraterrestrial during those times. I was also a high priest of Akhenaten. This links back into Akhenaten being present in Saqqara as well. One of his priest's tombs was found in Saqqara, I think in 2007. So this is a late find, which actually ties into my memories of my past lives in that area. But the past life experience predates the finding of that particular site, which is really extraordinary.
Validating.
Now, isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm. Very validating when
That's
that
so
happens.
Cool. Can you imagine if Laurie regressed?
What happened was when I got to the site, I was like, oh my God, all of my bowls are lined up. They've moved them. And I started to look around, and there are still 2 bowls set in the matrix on the ground as they were then. So the grid is still intact, albeit that maybe 9 have been removed for purposes of archaeology. That site I have access to. I mean, I get private access to it. I even get the key to the pyramid, and I spend time there. Now, when I spend time there, the site goes live.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And
I'm going to have to come.
Yeah.
Too.
But you also need to come to Luxor, because you need to step back into that energy which connects you to Sekhmet.
Well, I remember very distinctly, I had a past life regression too when I was very young.
I think I know what she's trying to say.
Yes.
She sees your lineage as coming down from Sekhmet. Is that true? Is that what you're saying, Tracey?
Yeah.
It was my uncle. It was my father's and my brother. My father and my uncle were extraterrestrial. I was the daughter of a pharaoh, and I do remember my mother passing, and then having like 8 or 12 women assigned to me to bathe me and oil me and fuss with me, which I remember just hating and just escaping into the tunnels where they would never find me, where I wasn't supposed to be. And then I would find the priests and my uncle, who did have the very elongated head. And I know a bunch of the other priests would try to wear garments that made them look like him. And I do know his name, and I almost said it. And I'm not supposed to quite yet, but not right now. But later I'll tell you. But absolutely, yeah, I do remember I had a very strong affiliation with in some ancient Egyptian times, and it was a wonderful life. But at the same time, I was doing things that I wasn't really supposed to be doing, and that was playing with the kids that I wasn't allowed to. And I remember being very personable and playing with kids and having to escape like guards and stuff. It was quite a time then. Lots of experimentation, though, was going on. Lots of secret meetings, lots of people passing through the tunnels. And I remember this one light that used to come into the big pyramid, and it would turn, and it made everything bright. It's unbelievable. I don't know the technologies, but I do know there are certain smells that sometimes I smell, and my mind is just flooded with images, certain oils. I think it's what they used to try to be putting in my hair and everything. I never did like to be fussed over like that. And you can smell those oils, and it just floods the memory. And that's kind of what happens when we're on our spiritual journey. We have past life recall. We begin to do our emotional work. We begin to see that we're really the same in this different life, this greater opportunity, though. And we get to correct what might happen or what might have happened before. I think that in this timeline, for the people on the planet right now, we really don't have anything to fear. I do believe that we will move into the fourth dimension, that we'll take that opportunity to balance our emotional energy, to let go of some of that baggage that keeps those attachments, those codependencies, that heavy, dense energy that keeps people it keeps them sheltered from their truth. Mm-hmm. And when we can move that pain, it doesn't hurt anymore. And all of a sudden, it's like taking your foot off a seed, and it begins to grow. And life has a way of coming to its full fruition. We just have to get out of the way and stop trying to overanalyze certain things, but just accept that reality is far more than we ever thought. And the power of our own minds, our subconscious, our ability for mindfulness and to control the vessel that we reside in. When we get that and become the masters of ourselves, we walk hand in hand with many of our cosmic families.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And I think that's really important, because then there's been a huge ascension cover up.
There absolutely has been.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about frequency fences and these power sites, the gateways and the chakra of the earth. Like, how do they impact each other? So the frequency fence is everywhere. It's not just there. But when you do work at these sacred sites and gateways, are you able to kind of take down these frequency fences temporarily, at least?
Of course.
For how long? I mean, do you come back a month later and it's back up again and you're like, oh.
Well, you know that I'm in a constant international schedule just in the gateways. And so I'm consistently working at recalibrating the gateways wherever I'm traveling. This has always been my work. And I'm seeing more and more, because people are becoming more interested in ancient intelligence, and also see gateways as, you know, key accelerators in terms of their ascension. Again, it goes back to this. The gateways work if your consciousness is working. So you need to follow the protocol, because there is much to benefit in terms of being trained. So, for example, when I work at a gateway, I'm working with the sacred land. I'm in contact with the ancestors. If the living indigenous are reluctant to connect with me, the ancestors will not be reluctant to connect with me, because I listen. So once that's put in place, once I've called the ancestors, and I mean, I get metaphysical changes in the reality I'm working in. So when I call the ancestors, the wind comes. I'm an alchemist. I'm a shaman, although I don't profess to work with any rituals, because I don't need to. Once the ancestors are called, then the elders come, and they usually come and sit with me in my ceremony on their sacred land. So that's the caliber of work that I am working with, and I'm allowed in. You know, if you listen, you're allowed in. I have huge respect for every tradition on the planet, and I wait and I listen. There is protocol. And in the West, we have so many frequency fences. It's the ego, of course. And of course, we believe that we know. We believe that it is our entitlement to experience what the ancients experienced, to experience what the indigenous experience. But of course, we have a right to honor the traditions, and we have a right to honor the gateways and to honor our sacred earth. So there is protocol that we must follow. And I believe that part is astonishingly important. So we must consider the sacred land that we work in. I do a lot of work in the UK. I do a lot of work in Japan. I do work in, of course, my Egypt. And I am an initiated Sufi as well. I've been allowed in. I've been trained in the Sufi traditions as well. So I'm hugely honored.
Well, the indigenous people of the land carry our creation story, as well as the story from the star people. And all indigenous cultures share certain commonalities, whether they came from underground or came from the star people. And listening actually is the key. It's not just listening. It's really hearing the deeper understanding that they're trying to convey. You know, sometimes I just want this recognition to remember. You know, there are many indigenous cultures believe that you're only forgotten when we stop speaking or remembering of them, and then their spirit dissipates. But when we recall and we sit and listen, yes, it's carried on the wind, and the elements begin to change. And maybe that's the transformational alchemical work, but you will notice the environment. It's almost like sometimes the stars lean in a little closer to watch or to hear, and you can listen and glean certain things. I had a wonderful time at many reservations all over America and in Canada, but my favorite is all of them, but the one I'm partial to is the old Chaco Canyon site of the Anasazi, and they were star people. And one day, all of them disappeared with clay pots filled with water, food cooking over fires, valuable turkey feathered blankets that repelled water and kept you warm. All of these things left because they ascended. They ascended together, both physically, spiritually, the entire clan, that they were in balance with nature. They could call a deer, and the deer would lay itself down, and the people would honor the meat and raise the spirit. There was harmony. It was almost like they understood their consciousness was being raised, like when sand is turned to glass. Like, we've raised the consciousness of sand. We've created a vessel, a new purpose for it. Everything is transformational. And there's a transformational energy inside us that gets moved when we sit and become mindful and listen. Just allow the mind to sense into the environment or to sense into the self, no matter where, depending on what work you're trying to do. But the ability to scan your internal mind and body and then scan outwards into another and to pick up their subtle energies, feel their past, their present, maybe even their future. We do gleam all sorts of things, and these are all just simple energies. You know, we can interpret our universe in strings of ones and zeros. We can understand the four quadrants of physics and the vastness of quantum physics, but that's only one way to interpret these things. When we interpret them on a higher, more loving, emotional thing, we see that everything is alive and everything has consciousness. And we can literally communicate with a tree.
Right. I was just going to say, like, we should also ask for permission to be on these sacred lands, ask to be received, ask the tree.
Just like they should ask to speak to us when the aliens come. When we go on, that's true.
Yeah.
It's
so it's also about respect, showing your respect, asking for permission, and then listening.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very, very important in dealing with sacred sites, indigenous people, and extraterrestrials. These are the same
the basic
protocols, the basic fundamental respect. Yeah. And we have to ask for that, and we have to give it.
And also, I also believe it's about spending time. You know, a lot of people will, for example, claim to be experts on Egypt when they've researched with a catalogue of books, but they haven't spent any time in field work. And field work gives you the truth. It gives you the vast and infinite answers to our existence. Yeah. And again, the data is encrypted at these sites. So, of course, it deserves something much better than a generic tour of a particular monument or a particular pyramid site. So we must stop being tourists in terms of the gateways, and we must see the gateways as incredible technologies in terms of immense teachers, the planet, our sacred planet, as the great mirror of and on our reality, our existence. So it's very important times in terms of us understanding what we must prioritize in terms of our evolution and our ascension and where we're directed to look. You know, so many people are currently doing so much of their research on the internet. And of course, It's a vocational training. It's a vocational interest. Your best work is in and through the direct experience, whether it's through ancient intelligence, through the earth, through community, through contact. So we can spend as much time as we wish referencing and quoting other sources. That is an academic education, which of course is inherent in toxic programming. So we must untangle ourselves from
it's historically inaccurate.
Yes. Yeah. So the culprit is in the way. We don't risk learning in another way, or we don't allow ourselves to learn in another way. And then when we move into experiences that are dimensional, then we are quantum uploading histories and education and technologies, and we're entering into telepathy and resonance. It's like working with you guys now. It's like the gateways are open, we have access, we're open, we can see each other, and we can honor our lineages, we can honor our own unique contracts of destiny without it ever needing to be political, because we see who we are as human beings. But of course, that comes because we're not committed to presumptions, and we're not committed to a false matrix education. We're committed to a quantum education. We're committed to evolution that is next level. But of course, that's the domain of the brave. And
Absolutely. It is time that people become a little bit more curious and begin to investigate. They're locked, hypnotized into TV or some form of tablet or device.
Or the internet.
And the internet. I mean, all of them have a purpose.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a distraction. And it takes us outside of ourselves. We can use them to motivate, to glean some information, but it is all about experiencing. Not everybody is going to be able to go to Egypt. Not everybody is going to be able to go to South America or to any of these other places, but they can sit anywhere outside and move the mind anywhere. There is no limit. Oh, sorry, my dog is hacking.
And also, don't you think we've been in this era of intelligence, right, where the intellect is king, if you will, or queen. And now we're trying to move our energy out of our heads, literally, and more into our heart, so we can feel. Isn't that what the awakening is about? It's about like feel your way through it, and instead of just honoring the smartest person in the room, right? Because there's wisdom in inner knowing, and there's wisdom in being book smart. But I feel like we've put too much emphasis and weight in one for so long, and the other one is like dormant.
Well, it's the emotional energy.
Yeah, emotional
going to teach you. So your emotional IQ, which is much more valuable than your intellectual IQ.
Right.
Intellectual IQ, all that really is the ability to remember or to learn, and who can't do that, right? But to emotionally explore is to expand a situation into 360 degrees. It's to see it from every perspective. It's to move into it and out of it and above it. And that's really what we need to do. We are living in a nation of, we know they're wounded, but at the same time, there's this zombie, there's this cutoff, there's this lack of connection, a lack of reality. if we have big issues on the planet, if we have a huge emotional or a financial crash and things are very bad, my biggest fear is that it won't be like it was in America back during the 20s and 30s when there was a depression. Because with that time, people helped each other out. They put together their limited groceries and made a pot of stew. Now they're telling people, hoard this, hide that, create this so that you can protect it. No, that's the opposite of what you want to do. What you want to do is to pool your resources, to come together and move through it largely as a whole. What they're telling people on how to handle situations and how to be is the opposite. They're saying go to school,
get a gun, and build a bunker and go underground.
Get a big education, strive for a big house, a big car. None of those things are internal. Your intrinsic motivation for doing something because it's the right way, to intuitively feel into a situation and to feel empowered enough to allow somebody else to be weak and without hurting them, but raising them up. This is the direction. These are the qualities. These are the characters that humanity needs to build. It's that coming together to support each other, where we can support each other's creativity as opposed to compete to make one thing over the other, but just to support each other in all of our endeavors so that we do come together as a larger picture. And if you're triggered by somebody or you're triggered by something, then you got to not find out what their issue is. You got to find out what inside of you is upset by their behavior. What part of you is reacting? Is it the scared child? Is it the rebel? What part? And when we begin to heal each of these pieces, each of these parts, we have an integration of self, a stronger, more powerful self who can show others how to do just that. And society, though, is teaching us the complete opposite. They say, get your bug-out bag and get a gun and hold down the fort because there's going to be marauders coming to try to steal your water.
Yeah.
That's not, that's really insulting and extremely insulting and completely underestimating the human spirit. I, for one, will never underestimate the human spirit. I believe much higher than that.
So really quickly, I just want to check in with you both because it's almost 9. And I wanted to ask you how much longer you're able to go. We do have a question in the chat room. And I had a couple more questions about avatars that I was hoping to cover, but I want to be respectful of your time. So what do you say?
I'm good.
You're good? Are you good?
Are you good?
I need some water and I'll be good.
Should we take a little 5-minute break?
I was just going to put a note on my dog and send him into my husband.
Staple it to his collar.
I am.
I could use a little 3-minute break myself.
Yeah, let's grab some water.
I'll take a 3-minute break and get some water.
Okay. So we'll take a 3-minute break. When we come back, I am chanting is in the chat room. I believe
I am chanting.
You know them, Laurie. And her question is, so you can think about it. I was under the impression that the Egyptians aligned with Saturn, where they served the dark energies. I got it all wrong then? So she's thinking maybe she got it all wrong. So don't answer it yet. Go take a break and we'll answer that when we come back.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If I had some music, I would play it. All right, all right. I am back. Did we lose Tracey? Looks like we may have lost Tracey. Oh no, she's still with us. She's just muted.
I'm back.
Hello. There
Hello.
you are. Hello, hello. Audio's good?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So how's everyone in the chat room doing? We've got quite a few people in there. Not a lot of questions tonight. Everyone's kind of quiet. I think we're just, you ladies are just mesmerizing them. We're going through so many topics, like pretty heavy stuff and pretty deep stuff really quickly. So I think they're all just kind of absorbing all the information.
It's really interesting having two field leaders coming together in a discussion,
Right.
where you can be frank and you can undertake a discussion without it needing to be personal or any of those things. It's just the willingness to enter a journey in terms of what the ascension is, what the work is. So that I find really refreshing, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you
because
guys have a lot of commonality.
often when we, you know, like when we share a platform, there often isn't enough time to explore or go on a journey, you know, because the time is such that there isn't that time to share and discuss and
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing how you're both so knowledgeable and you have a lot of overlap, you know, so you can speak on the same subjects. And it seems like so far you've mostly been in agreement. So that's really amazing also.
I can't really speak too well on any of the ancient Egyptian stuff other than my own sort of. I've done no studying, read anything or have been there. I mean, I've seen the odd thing on TV, but it's just really my own past life regression work and glimpses.
You haven't been there physically?
No.
Wow.
I just remember.
I assumed that you had been there at least once.
No, not yet. We definitely are planning a trip and would like to do sort of the Turkey, Istanbul, and Egypt. And maybe Greece too, and, you know, take care of that section. But no, I haven't been, only not in this life.
Right.
Only in past life. How weird, eh?
Look, food for thought. Tracey's getting ideas. So shall we go back to I Am Enchanting's, who is I Am Enchanting? I know her name. I'm trying to.
I don't know that handle, but
in chat rooms.
The question was thinking that Saturn ruled some dark energies in ancient Egypt.
Correct.
At one time or another, the truth is that we went through a dark time on the planet. Many cultures had a time where they battled a dark side. Our own time was, 600 to 611 in our medieval times. where humanity was the most torturous. But as you would recall,
Dark
the
Ages.
cosmology of the universe, the planet Earth herself was as far away from the sun, receiving the least amount of illumination during that time frame. But now the Earth, as she's swinging up on an ascension path, we are becoming more illuminated. We are remembering, we're recalling, and we're getting that opportunity to reboot our own minds and senses and begin to take that next step with the right information. Against all odds, we'll do it.
Tracey, what is your take on that question?
On that question,
Yeah.
Methinks that your darling listener needs to do a little more research. Okay, I think it's phenomenal. We have found an area where there was an event over the White Desert, which is in the Western Desert of Egypt, where there is evidence of impact and a cosmic war that took place over the gateway of Egypt. So we're looking at this. Just recently, we went out there and visited this particular gateway in June. Laurie, I was doing contact out there, and the ships were coming in and following the beams of my lasers, and I was guiding them right in. I mean, really coming in super close. I've got this on film as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the gateways, in terms of where it went wrong for Egypt, Egypt has an extraordinary history. And if you're going to tackle Egypt, you have to tackle it from the perspective of ancient Egyptians. Then you're looking at the Greeks and the Romans, and then the implants of disinformation that are associated with both of those histories. And then also after that, you also have the distortions that are also created by Christianity, etc., the three major religions, which are of course rooted in Egypt. I've done a lot of research on Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I also have visited around 70 times. The evidence that I consistently find in Egypt is this. It is rooted in the creation story. The temples and the pyramids that are aligned and designed with the earliest dynasties are profoundly encrypted with the creation story. Those gateways are linked to other gateways all over the planet, and that creation story is linked, and that of those gateways are designed and assigned for the survival of the planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we see that in the fact that pyramids were being built in by the Mayans, and in the Yucatan and in Romania. Pyramids were being built all over the planet simultaneously. There was an underground of information, but that underground was really mostly extraterrestrial. We do not want to take away anything from the humans that were involved in it, but definitely. Oh, we lost Tracey.
Oh, we lost Tracey.
She'll zoom back in.
Yeah, she'll zoom back in. I'll just keep the.
Yeah, we do see that simultaneously around the world. Pyramids were being built over top of specific energetic ley lines, and these areas were used in technology, but also in things like astronomy, also in things like knowing when to plant for food. Oh,
here she comes.
Yeah.
Did you know there are pyramids underwater in Japan?
Of course.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you know there were pyramids in China?
I would assume there would be. It's like one of the most ancient cultures. Tracey,
there are also.
See you, but we can hear you.
I'm trying to fix it.
Okay.
I just the energy gets blown out. I'm back.
There you go.
There are terrestrial pyramids in Japan, which I also work at.
Your audio's a little far away.
Okay, let me find it.
Okay, that's better.
That's better.
Are we good?
It's better, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Okay,
did.
sorry guys. So just coming back in on that, I actually traced the Dendera zodiac in Japan to a tomb complex, which is connected to 3 pyramids in a place called Asuka, which is very close to Nara and Kyoto. No one in our community speaks about these connections because they haven't bloody been to these sites, so they can't speak about the connections. So if you think about this vast distance of time and space between ancient Egypt and then ancient Japan, this tomb is 7th century, so it is far younger than, of course, the Dendera zodiac. The zodiac is, we're looking at a Greek temple, so I think it's just around, say, 1 century BC, something like that. It's got another, say, 7 centuries afterwards, and you've still got that imprint and that presence of ancient Egypt in Japan. If you look at Shinto, you know the watch that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
That is the imperial seal of Japan.
Is it now?
And that's interesting. So you got the roots into the Sumerian, the ancient Egypt, and then you've got the seal, the royal seal, the imperial house, and as we know, both the emperor and his queen, they are shaman and priestess, and they still hold daily initiations and ceremonies over the entire Japan landscape. So Shinto works the gateways, the energy pathways, just as they did in Egypt in ancient times. So you get this amazing linkage of so many different gateways. Like I love the Lemurian here because I'm in Shasta now, but I love the way that the Lemurian surfaces in terms of ancient Egypt. And of course, we have a lot of research to do in terms of penetrating all of the multi-layers in terms of the histories and all of the projections that come from particular periods of time and particular statements that suit particular stories of particular periods. All of that stuff we have to sift our way through in order to understand what is at the root of our history as a species. Yeah?
Well, absolutely. I mean, once we
Where is everyone? Where's everyone gone?
We're here.
We're here. Can you hear us?
I lost them.
Uh-oh.
Well, we hear you.
We can hear you.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, your connection seems to be a little spotty because you keep freezing and then coming back.
Mm-hmm. It's the Mount Shasta thing.
Yeah, we lost her the other night. Oh,
and
we lost her again. Yeah, we lost her the other night.
Well, you know, talking about the roots of humanity, you know, that's really what the quest is all about. Those are the big philosophical questions that humanity has asked itself for centuries. You know, why are we here? What is it all about? We do have record of specific cultures who did have contact with interdimensional and extraterrestrial beings, but there's a time in our recent history where that stopped. And that stopped for a very specific reason. And as an entire planet, we all need to sort of do our work there and understand our roots so that we can see where we came from, so we have a better understanding of where we are, so we know where we're moving towards. It's really what it's all about. It's the process.
Hello.
It's the journey, not the destination. What can I say? And she's back.
Okay, so really quick, I want to ask you
Yeah.
a question. Do you want to touch on that some more, or?
What, the Saturn link with Egypt?
Or yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys both really answered that question, and I wanted to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think what is the key with this all is really, truly question the sources of information that you're referencing. I mean, that's my biggest thing. Ask questions. I mean, there's always certain theories that are in vogue. Beware of mainstream theory because it can create problem after problem. You see, I was trained to study philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford. So I was privately tutored. I was primed to go. I was primed to, take that course of education. And I chose not to because I wanted to pursue this arena. But I bring that level of ability to research to the sites that I work with, and then the metaphysics that I'm trained in as well. And I think what we don't do enough of in this arena is question. And we don't question what we're given, which means that we can be hugely blind in terms of how we perpetuate creating particular mistakes in terms of the way we interpret our history. But that also creates mistakes in the way we create our reality now too, because we take on board all sorts of distortions by buying into lies and mistruths and misinformation. So no,
people they want to hear certain things.
Yeah,
and I that's a bit of the problem, is that we'll have certain people presenting information and people are in the audience or they're listening at home or whatever the case may be, and they want to know, they're seeking, and they hear something that sounds good and maybe too good, but they begin to just accept it because it's easier that way. But there is always questioning the source. With experiencers, though, of course, we're really only going by basic anecdotal and testimonial. We often, from my perspective as a researcher, we have to look at them as witnesses. We have to speak to them as if they've witnessed a phenomena or any event, which they have. And then we begin to ask the right questions, and it actually helps them to streamline the information as well. But when we're getting information on how the ancient Lemurians or Egyptians ruled or how they did that, just know that that's history. That's his story, and that story was created. That's his story, and the story was created by the victors. For reasons, to control the masses. Unfortunately, it's all about money and power.
But this is kind of interesting because in Egypt, if you look at the Dendia or zodiac, it depicts these current times. It's a prophecy device. So, where we look at the advanced technologies of the ancient Egyptians, I mean, in order for them to be able to anchor into prophecy and foresee these current times and also provide the solutions for these times, I don't think this ancient civilization was locked into a negative agenda. I believe that the sacred seeds of humanity were laid down with a Syrian connection. If you do your research on Egypt, you will see that both Horus and Isis are connected with Sirius. Do your research and remove yourself from the negative agenda, high drama, manipulated histories.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, isn't that amen?
And the age
right.
of
Or no,
the
it's
hidden.
a woman. A woman.
Yeah, but Amun was an ancient Egyptian priest who made certain declarations and he signed them Amun. They were used as religious text. Hence, we use in English today the word amen, but was pronounced Amen. And that's where that comes from. So, there's all of these twists that we see in all of the history. But yeah, we use words without knowing what the true reference is. And that's another way that they can manipulate the consciousness, because words resonate at a particular frequency. That frequency dictates our consciousness. So becoming mindful and aware of the words that we use and the definitions, or at least how the subconscious and superconscious mind are interpreting them, what frequencies they resonate with. When we begin to see that, we're able to, again, self-master, self-actualize, stay in that more inner peaceful, tranquil energy where we can operate from a place of stability and love.
Mm-hmm.
So
Beautiful.
where we're dealing with that level of insight, Laurie, we're dealing with what the ancient Egyptians understood. I'm hugely interested in communication and listening and placement of frequency and placement of words as keys to unlock. So as you probably work with not necessarily the answers, it's how we ask the right questions of our clients, which unlocks a particular journey. But that is an exceptionally ancient way of working, and one that's indicative of sight and being able to see clearly all of the choices that a client has before them, which of course conventional education and patriarchy and duality, etc., cannot deliver that level of sensitivity, sensibility, and intelligence.
And an intimacy.
Yeah. So, we came up with that, the question around intellect. I don't dismiss the intellect, but I dismiss the intellect when it is absolutely filtered in programming, which distorts truth. So we have to go through certain processes to get to truth. And that is, of course, the principle of Maat. And it's the weighing of the human heart against the feather, the counterbalance. Then we stand on the gateway of eternity. Then we have heart and mind as one. Then we have the ability to step into and beyond as the unknown. So we are entering ascension, evolution, contact, and we're experiencing ourselves as there is no death.
Well, there isn't. Absolutely.
There is no death.
And I believe it was Socrates or Plato who said that if the humans, he probably said the people, if the people knew the eternity of the soul, they would take every risk. They would push every envelope. They would jump every cliff. They would just continue moving forward. They would be fearless because there's nothing to fear.
Wow. What if we were taught that in elementary school?
You'd end up with a son like mine.
Quite a different society. I guess you taught him that at an early age.
Yeah, he started meditating at about 4 years old. He's 32 now. He teaches in Bangkok. And he's definitely fearless.
That's great. That's wonderful. So, Laurie, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what your workshop is going to be about at Avatars of the Earth Gathering.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. I'm going to lay out 5 steps, protocols, to personal empowerment and inner peace. I'm going to show a way, a proven way to accept, to love the self, to develop the self, to learn mastery of that development, and then to be actualized in the world in a loving, peaceful way. I'm going to show them how to be in the driver's seat of their own mind and body, because it is a fundamental belief of mine that all people have the right to be at ease in their mind and body. And it's only through the ability to relax the emotional body, it's only through relaxation that we heal the mind and the body. All healing of the mind and body begins with relaxation, calming down, settling in, letting the energies relax so that the static can settle, so we can see the purity of what is and adjust what's necessary.
And you have such a calming voice. Like, I want you to read me a bedtime story.
I read out loud. I like to read out loud to my husband.
Yeah, you're so good at, like, your voice is just, you know, I could see why
hypnotic.
Yeah, it's a little, but in a good way, right?
Yeah.
It's very like calming and hypnotic. And I want you to read me a bedtime story. I'll probably be out in like 2 minutes.
I'll send you a recording.
Okay.
I'm creating recordings now that people
like meditations.
More like inspirations.
Okay.
More about self-correction in their specific area. And so I want to work on some that are just for de-stressing and for deep, profound sleep. I think that people are really lacking that ability to rejuvenate the body, the mind, the cells, because of this attachment to technology through the phones and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's necessary, unplug.
Right.
Yeah.
You could do wonderful meditation recordings too.
Yeah. Well, I do lots of guided meditations, and for a while we were doing what was called a stone soup meditation, where I'd invite about 12 or 13 people to my home, and we would have this incredible vegetarian lunch after a long guided meditation, and we would meditate on one word, like the word enough, to change the energy, stopping thinking in terms of lack of, but begin to see the word enough as in there is enough. Many people overeat and become anxious, or they could look at the food on their plate and think that's probably just enough. The energy, emotional and physical energy, begin to relax. The hunger inside begins to diminish. So we become both nourished and nurtured from the food that we eat. And just one word, or love. My granddaughter came to her first guided meditation, and it was on love. And I asked her at the end of it, while people were eating and getting fruit and food and so forth, I said, what was your best part of the meditation? And she said, when you said the word love, because it moved through everybody. Very
beautiful. Beautiful. So we have another question from the chat room. Do you guys mind if I
No.
One more question in? So this is from Tanette, who just joined us recently. And she asks, how do you separate the hijacked symbolism of today from the symbolism of the old?
It's a very good question. Because we do have a lot of ancient symbols that represented, like the swastika, for instance, that was once used in temples, and it represents something entirely different than white supremacy. So what you have to do is know the truth and just reject what isn't true. You have to be able to do that. You have to use the part of the psyche that is the observer, and instead of the one that just is continuously receiving information. We need to observe. When you're watching TV, if you're emoting and crying or reacting in some way, you're hypnotized. The conscious critical mind knows that's not real. It's only the subconscious mind that's accepting it as real that allows you to emote. In any situation, when you become the observer inside of the psyche, utilizing the different strengths of the mind, you can prevent yourself from being hypnotized by the corruption of sacred symbolism and even of words.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps our watcher.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't catch all of the question because you froze as the question came in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll repeat it. She says,
Yes.
how do you separate the hijacked symbolism of today from the symbolism of old, which was originally good, maybe in parentheses?
I agree. I recently was given this wonderful catalog of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and symbols. And so I put the atom over the apple on my iPhone. And that was kind of a really interesting experiment. I actually wear my own ancient symbols. So I have the Eye of Horus.
I can't see it. Move it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Where is the camera? Where are you? Where are you? Okay, I'm gonna like bring you in. Can you see it? I don't know whether you can.
Put it on speaker view.
Okay.
Go
so
ahead.
I have this. I don't know.
Okay. I saw that.
So I have this wonderful tattoo, which is part of the breastplate of Tutankhamun's collection. And it is the Eye of Horus with the vulture. The vulture is symbolic of all the goddesses of Egypt. And on the right-hand side is the serpent and the Kundalini energy, which is a requirement, of course, of the void. And of course, into the energetic push that takes us into full-blown awakening and awareness. So many of our ancient sacred symbols, I mean, I love Egypt for that because it's so deliciously visual that even just reading a book or looking at a book of the ancient symbols will invoke your memories of a more complete self. So for me, I adore going to museums and experiencing, say, for example, a Sekhmet statue. My background is as a designer, so I'm hugely visual, and my
Me too.
yeah, well, of course, it's Egypt too.
Mine 3.
Really? I was an interior designer for Ethan Allen while I was going to school. I was an interior
Furniture
designer for Ethan Allen.
Here we've got furniture, clothing, and graphic.
Oh,
That's funny.
oh, life can be beautiful.
Oh. Welcome to my world.
Welcome to the world of ancient Egypt. Because I'm always saying to my husband, oh my God, it's not as beautiful as it was back then.
Oh, well, no, because there was so much more water in marshland. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to have the symbolism and the magnification and the high frequency, I mean, we need to not just re-engage with the ancient symbolism, but also to re-engage with the beauty of our planet and the beauty of ourselves and the beauty of other human beings. So we're penetrating the false matrix, the density of our programs. And when we unlock ourselves, then we become keys in unlocking other people. And that I find really fascinating. For example, who are you as a sacred symbol? Who are you as an avatar? Yeah.
Oh,
that's part of
that's my next question.
Yeah, that's part of my drive in terms of bringing to life the visual and how we can initiate a greater sacred self in that initiation, in that ritual. Yeah. So I love those questions. How do we reinvoke these sacred languages, these sacred signatures? And how can we really, really have the direct experience with them so we invoke our sacred feminine and our sacred masculine, because that's what these symbols are all about. And then we're not just speaking with pop spirituality attachment. We're deeply invoking and awakening those signatures within ourselves. And that's what sacred symbolism does for us. That's why I love Egypt so much, because it's the most delicious visual sacred experience. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, provides a level of intelligence that pushes us to really see and to see and perceive.
The ancient Egyptians understood that the language of the subconscious mind is image. It doesn't speak Chinese or English, any language.
Yeah.
Subconscious speaks in images, based with an emotional impact. When that image can invoke an emotion, it can create a neural pathway to a specific behavior or to a specific healing. So these ancient symbols have enormous ability to help us heal.
So that's quantum communication.
It's quantum communication. It's through the image. And the image invokes an emotion, and the emotion is an energy. The energy is a frequency, and this is how we do it. Not in a language, but in an image.
And quantum recalibration,
Right, and that's what happens.
Yeah. So speaking of avatars, Tracey, the other night, for all of you listeners who were on the show the other night with Tracey, right before we lost our connection, I had asked you a question, which was, why is it so important that people come to avatars with their amazing avatar costumes?
Well, I just described it. It's about really
tonight.
Yeah, it's about really getting in touch with these sacred signatures within us, and really invoking the true self and awakening the true self. And as you know, I'm a little keen on mobilizing people, encouraging people to really step into their.
So are you encouraging people to dress as their avatar? Or is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
So I have to go shopping.
Did you miss that memo, Laurie?
I missed
oh my goodness.
I actually think that I probably do have an avatar in mind that I could
resonate.
Do you want to share? Do you want to share what it is?
If I were to choose one, I think I would pick Kuan Yin as the goddess of mercy.
Nice.
She's so powerful in her strength to not only hold and understand the emotional energy of the people, but to have forgiveness and mercy.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves a second chance. And I resonate with that philosophy. I would use Kuan Yin as my avatar.
Do it.
I think off the top of my head.
In Kyoto, there's a temple that's dedicated to Kuan Yin, and there are 100 Kuan Yin statues, which are all different.
I would love to see that.
You walk through, and each one you must see in its entirety, so you can take on board the extent of her completeness and differentness in all of her emotions and states, and
many,
I think many pictures of those statues. I remember, because she's one of my spirit guides. So when you posted those pictures, I was like, "What? I would love."
Yeah, it's one of the most incredible gateways.
I
Yeah,
would love to go
Japan
there.
is worth, yeah, it's worth a visit. Yeah.
It sounds like it. Definitely. I think I'll try to figure out if I can dress somehow as as an avatar. That would be very interesting. And
Well,
I think it might be a little bit
yourself giving your workshop as Kuan Yin, because you'll be dressed probably for the whole day. So I was thinking, like, wait, when I moderate the Ascension panel, am I going to have my avatar costume on?
A lot of the goddesses were topless. I mean,
well, it is Shasta.
It is. There were. I just really enjoyed so many different people in Shasta. I loved all the hippies, and it was wonderful to see them so free to express and so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. How was your experience on Panther Meadows? I spoke to you right before you went there.
It was amazing and well worth the hike. I had about a 25-pound pack. Coming back up was a little bit hard, but had the most incredible meditation down there. And yeah, just everything was so beautiful. It was like the water moved sort of in slow motion and the colors blended and merged. And I didn't know if a portal was opening or if just the overwhelming beauty of the area was overwhelming my senses. But it's quite an incredible place. You must go.
Tracey, were you there recently this week?
I haven't been up there because, of course, Shasta had snow maybe 2 days ago.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, I'm not kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I mean, it was quite chilly when I was there at the beginning of the month. Many of the campers said that they should have brought, warmer stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been out to Glass Mountain and Medicine Lake, the Ascension Stone. We've actually been set up camp there anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where we've been for the last week.
Very nice.
Yeah. So really interesting, as always, in Shasta, as always.
Yes.
And you kind of meet some really interesting experiences here. I mean, I met this guy in Berry Vales the other day, and he looked at me and he went, "Yes, you're one of us." And that was it.
That's the organic market,
oh my God,
right?
Darling. And we're exchanging codes in Berry Vales Cafe. I mean, where else can you do it but Shasta?
Well, definitely check out the Indian restaurant. There's only one.
Oh, yeah, I went to it.
Beautiful. Man.
Such an experience.
Such an experience. Not only did I get a wonderful Indian dish, I got a full head massage, and I met Peter Shasta, who's a local hero and recorder of experiences.
Wow.
Books out. And he just happened to be there when I was there. And it was just this wonderful little reunion. I mean, it was like almost everywhere you go in Shasta, whether it's the market or out for dinner, you're going to be able to hit somebody who's free and grounded enough to engage.
That's awesome. Yeah, we went to that Indian restaurant on the last night, and he was the only one there in terms of service. And there was another I think they were Indian family eating, but we just had like quite the experience.
Yeah, I went twice.
You did. You went back for another head massage.
I found it so enjoyable. We went again. Yeah.
I'm glad that he's still there, because he said he was going to maybe close the restaurant when we were there.
Well, when I was there one time, the whole patio was filled, every table.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And So now that he's got a wonderful review
On the Ascension sessions.
on the Ascension. Well, you know,
You heard it here first.
the human body requires food, and we have to nourish and nurture the mind and the body. And it's okay to have some wonderful Indian food.
That's right.
At Roshni's on Walnut Street. No, just kidding. I'm sorry, I did a little commercial for them, but
Okay.
I really want them to be happy and successful there.
So I have a question for you ladies. In your contact communications, what is it that you think they most want humanity to know?
I can answer that.
Or channelings, or whatever you want to call it, however you receive divine guidance and divine interaction.
Okay, so a lot of people who are channeling are not necessarily channeling extraterrestrials. In fact, most of them are not. What they're channeling is their higher self, their multidimensional self, their self, perhaps as an ET. So we've got to be really careful that we don't give our power away to others when we're gaining this information. Don't underestimate the human spirit once again. But one of the things that they would like us to know is that we are far more powerful than we realize, that we have an opportunity to manifest almost a Garden of Eden, that the duality on the planet can be balanced. And as it expands, we'll move further into the higher understanding. Baby steps, though, but strong baby steps. I believe they trust us, and that they trust our ability to know when we're being manipulated. We will do the right thing. And they want us to know that. And when a person trusts themselves to do better, they will do better. When they believe they can do better, they will do better. When they see a future that we can create and we step into our responsibility, we have children and we have grandchildren, and the earth is alive. It's a female body. It's alive. And there's a divine feminine energy that's allowing us to unfold naturally. They don't reprimand us when we fall down. They show us how to get up so that we can walk strongly forward. This is what they want. They want us to come into our power. Our weakness causes fear, panic, and corruption. Our weakness through insecurity stops us from loving, from both giving and receiving. And love is a two-way street, and it's a beautiful flow of energy. And we're blocking that all the time with our own self, our own mind, our own weakness. They want us to step into our truth and create what we're meant to do. Humans are powerful manifestors, and we can do this together.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Tracy.
So we have two-phase evolution. One is the phase of evolution that is, of course, humanity's path. Second phase evolution is, of course, integration and completion within the context of source, which also at the same time means an integration with intelligence and an instruction and connection and honoring of intelligence way beyond our own domain of experience. So we have two-phase evolution. So we are shifting into and through the frequency fences, into and through the recalibration. That is an important feature of the times that we live in terms of ascension. And we are in fast and high-powered acceleration, which allows us to perceive not only the contracts of this lifetime, but of all lifetimes. And this is the ultimate in terms of the ascension, because we have a choice in terms of completing an evolutionary phase as human beings, then we can move into becoming guardians of humanity as we move into and through higher dimensions. So where we walk in the footsteps of the ancient ones, we remember our sacred mission on the planet, and we remember our sacred mission in the universe. And we are forever entangled in a mission that is one of evolution and only one of evolution. So these are the times where we must make that decision to walk the path that is sacred and the path that is light. Really significant times. I mean, the evolutionary cycles and the contracts are available to us. Beware of false prophets. Beware of disinformation. Beware of distractions. Beware of politics. That where you sell your life force and your light. So where there is little energy, walk away. So walk to high energy, walk to high frequency. Sit in the earth, listen to the earth, sit in the gateways, listen to the sacred signs, listen to the signposts. See how the earth responds as you walk a very different path in terms of your frequency. When you do that, then evolution is walking and standing right by your side. And you are then out maneuvering the false matrix and the lower density frequency fences that are designed to manipulate reality and control it. You know, I've done a lot of work on this. My last 2 books, which I haven't released yet because I'm just sitting on them for the right time. I'm not interested in, you know, getting them out there until they're really appropriate for the right people in the right hands, etc. But we've just walked through one book on 3, 4, 5D, and the next one's on Wound Weaver, which I think is a hugely important book in terms of being able to, as a book, travel with you, walk with you into the wound and into and through the timelines. And that's our greatest battle as individuals and as a species, because once we can walk through that battleground and we can make peace and we can sit with the wound, then we can live on the planet as extraordinary human beings. And that's the turnkey for evolution. And if our children are guided and educated to sit with their wounds and how that comes up with our interactions with the false matrix and our entanglement with it, and also with contracts. But when we can sit in and with the sacred self, and when we can summon the sacred self to deal with the challenges, that's when we really begin to see evolution peaking and really taking a turn point for the good. And that's when we'll have more conscience in terms of honoring other human beings on the planet. So we must fix the wound. And that's what basically extraterrestrial contact is coming in to assist us with, isn't it, Laurie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
so
are.
The message is good. Yeah.
It's there. We have to meet them halfway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have one more question from Tinette. Would you ladies be willing to take on one more question?
Can do one more question.
And we have Eric too. Eric's in the house, and Lisa Frith. You know Lisa.
Eric.
Eric, who I met, Laurie, at your Skywatch event
it's Eric Wheeler. Okay.
When Vice came out and did the documentary.
Yes.
We have Jeff Demers in the house. Who else? Suzanne, if she's still there, and Chic Equilibre. And so Tanette's other question is, Ra, you know, the god Ra, has been depicted as both good and bad. What do you guys think? And aren't we all good and bad? But that's a deep question. Sorry?
In a world of duality,
Mm-hmm.
everything can be interpreted one way or the other. In fact, with the right adjusted mind, you interpret things to a higher way or a negative way. Ra was the son of God. This was illuminating. This was bringing energy to support the people, to help raise up the people. But in all politics and in all religion, there is a certain vein of corruptness. And if that corrupts the message to the people and the message turns bad, it's possible. But even, you know, in every religion, you can see the negative and you can see the positive. In the ancients, although their philosophy was spiritual, it eventually turned into a dogma. So depending on the time frame that they're asking from. But in general, that wasn't the original idea. It wasn't a negative thing. And I'm sure Tracey actually knows more on that than me.
It's kind of interesting how the association with Ra later on during the 18th and 19th dynasty, it shifts to the priests of Amun-Ra, and that firmly closes the sacred feminine. So it's here that the sacred feminine wisdom begins to be distorted and closed down. It's it's kind of interesting. You see present throughout the 18th dynasty, you see the importance of the queen. And then as you move through the 18th dynasty, the later 18th dynasty, and you work through the reign of Tutankhamun, and then you work through who then becomes the next pharaoh after Tutankhamun. It's there that you see the turn point, the shift. So the priests of Amun-Ra are based at Karnak. Karnak is a solar temple which was dedicated to Ra. When you start to move through the periods that is dedicated to Amun-Ra, Amun means hidden. So that which is so closely associated to creator then becomes hidden. And I believe the hidden element is the part that then goes on to deplete the divine feminine. So you have all of the initiations of Karnak, which are solar. So the solar pathway, it relates to the priests of Horus. It always relates to the solar path, the path of the east. It's so dominant in Karnak. The Ascension areas in Karnak are set to the east. The sacred lake is set to the east side also. So you have extraordinary areas. The Amun period is a little denser. It's where there's a shift more towards patriarchy, dominance of the priesthood in terms of removing direct experience of creator and contact from public domain. Mm-hmm. So that's where you see that there's a shift and a split. Amun isn't necessarily something that is negative. It's the density of the story that is a layer in terms of the truth of what that particular Nita represents. Now, Ra is a reality gateway. on gods. So even how we interpret what Nitas are, they're the gods and goddesses of Egypt, but that was falsely or falsely misunderstood in terms of its translation. So Nitas are gateways. So where you have Ra, it's a gateway to a solar path. I mean, that's extraordinary. So once you have Amun there, you have a closed gateway in terms of creator. Ra to me means everything that is solar. I mean, you always have the cartouche, which is associated with the wings. And so the cartouche of the pharaoh is the sacred protection of the royal bloodline. Is there anything negative about Ra? No, it has its roots in Samaria. It's got its roots in the creation story. But again, you have to be hugely careful about which period of history, which dynasty you're accessing in terms of the filter on the information you're attaching yourself to. So again, your field work is important. I mean, anything associated with Ra, I mean, when I get into the divine feminine in Karnak, there's one temple that I'm just hugely interested in. It's what I reference as the 0 point temple. It's halfway between Karnak and Luxor temple. It's set dead halfway. There are 720 Sekhmet statues. This is one of the key temples in terms of the initiations, the rites of the divine feminine, the rites of the divine masculine. Both rites, both mystery schools are required in order to initiate the gateway of Ra. So my tattoo is synonymous with opening and activating the eye of Horus so that we can see God. That's an important part of this because the eye of Horus is the all-seeing eye, of course. And so we take on board the signature of creator so we can see everything. We have quantum vision. We have quantum ability to detect. This is what the ancient Egyptians were doing. Their technologies were the advancement of consciousness for all time, even in terms of securing the contracts of future lifetimes. It doesn't get any better than experiencing Ra in all of its totality. When we experience God, then we see and we feel through the eyes and the heart of creator. We are Ascension itself. I mean, there's so much disinformation on Egypt. It's extraordinarily unhelpful in terms of where it sets you on your false matrix journey and it locks you tightly into the patriarchy and ego trends of research on ancient Egypt. So we need to look to the origins of these signatures and gateways and see them as extraordinary technologies in our journey to a greater level of intelligence and a greater level of evolution on this planet. And that's one thing the ancient Egyptians did get right. They had ascension here on the planet. Heaven on earth was created on a day-to-day basis by the priests of Horus, not necessarily by the priests of Amun, by the priests of Horus. The solar path was indeed created, the path of the East, the path of most spirituality. So there we have it. To live in the eyes and the heart of creator. And that's kind of interesting because if I just touch into something now, I'm hugely interested in these schools of thought, the mystery schools of Egypt, the male and the female mystery schools, where you have Horus and Hathor. Hathor is the house of gold. Hathor or Hathor is the 0 point. She stands on the outer limits of the universe. She is the next phase required in terms of our evolution so we can truly go beyond. That is the return of the divine feminine. In order to understand what Ra is, we need to activate these gateways within us. And that's hugely important. Isis, Osiris, Hathor, Horus, these are signatures within ourselves that we must return to as the evolutionary keys for greater sacred intelligence. And that triggers our sacred contracts again. So this is something that I know through my prophecies, my visions, when I visit sites. I've been given my role as a gatekeeper in the Great Pyramid. If anyone wants initiations that are authentic in Egypt, join me on a tour. Don't be missold by those who have so little understanding of Egypt. I mean, I honor it completely in the great mystery of our existence. It's to be honored. It is not for vocational studies. It is not for those who are ego-centered and who see it as a quick and fast way to make money in terms of tours, etc., etc. Egypt is to be honored as, and as such, the ancient Egyptian knowledge, the pure knowledge of the mystery schools is also critical during these times, and to understand it and to access it thoroughly is to be initiated in those schools. Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you. It's funny, when I went to Egypt, I really resonated with Hathor the most. Like every temple I went to, every city I went to, whenever I saw her and learned about her, she was the one that I felt the most connection to.
Many of the goddesses have left their attributes and signatures upon the psyche of women for thousands of years. Everything that they've left is in us. We can draw upon our own divine feminine energy to resonate with that. And you can understand the energies of Hathor, of all of the great goddesses. There are, to me, 7 of the most powerful goddesses that have ever walked the planet. When we do our goddess retreats, we teach those attributes and show the women how to find them, because they have been imbued upon our psyche. Their symbolism is all around us. It's up to us to be the detective, to understand that what we're seeing and what we're understanding. But there was a time, and probably in the 18th century and sooner too, depending on where we were geographically, where the divine feminine was suppressed. But in May of 2017, when the Vatican raised Mary to apostle, we began to see that the divine feminine is entering back into the psyche of women. That was a huge day in the history. She went from harlot and whore to apostle, because we now see that she was a powerful Gnostic teacher, and almost everything that Jesus taught, he learned from Mary. She was his right-hand man. And so when the Vatican, of all the corrupt churches, raised her to apostle, we begin to see the shifting again of energy. And we will move into this divine power. Each woman, regardless of the avenue that she takes, whether it's through the ancient Egyptian or whether it's through some other modality of spirituality, whatever path, all paths lead to consciousness, to that expansion, to that multidimensionality. And the way is highlighted when we become observant and call upon the different parts of ourself to help. You know, we're all always stuck in one gear, and that's autopilot. And we don't need to be there. When we shift our own energy, we can learn. and take a tour. Go and visit some of these places. Begin to create the life that you want to live. Absolutely nothing is impossible with the properly adjusted attitude. We really can do anything.
And I think it's also about reaching out to those women and men who are role models for that sacred signature.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to necessarily travel for that. We just need to reach out and hold those people close to us, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And those
then.
yeah, and those role models can become mentors, and those role models can become immense support systems in our journey. It's just very much recognizing where those incredible souls come into your life, and how you ensure that they stay part of your life. Yeah. You know, and that, you know, that takes us on another journey in terms of sacred signatures, because then Egypt is always about love, and it's about sacred experiences as well, and walking our paths with our flames, you know. And the more inner work that we do, then the more we magnetize contracts where we have the eternity factor in terms of human beings that are walking with us. And I believe that's a massive feature in good quality contact too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because when we get it right, then those extraterrestrial races can indeed step forward and aid us further. You know, and I see that as a really important current evolutionary lesson as well. Yeah. It's a hugely incredible times, but it is actually the end of lower density intellect, and intellect that's driven by programming and agenda and stereotypes, which is why these kids are calling us to address our current toxic educational systems. It's time to create the change and attend to the much needed change. And we have to stop waiting for someone else to do that for us. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm creating these events. If I wait for someone else to do it, I may wait a long time. So we have to step up, and we have to create the environments in which people can thrive.
And that's what we do. I mean, as humans, we are creators. And all we have to do, I mean, you can walk outside of your house and look around. Everything you see will have been a thought, an idea that became manifested, man-made, or manufactured. We are capable of making anything happen. It's just a matter of selecting the right path here. People easily become manipulated, and there's another man word.
I have a friend, Laurie, that I should do a show with you. He dissects language and words so incredibly. I've never seen anyone analyze the English language the way he does. I mean, it's just fascinating the way
I love
he breaks it down, and it's so fascinating. I should get a show with just you and him talking about language and
absolutely,
and the mind bending. Yeah, the mind bending synonym that we have in English, which is crazy.
Right. And
like retreat and retreat, right?
Right.
One means to rest and relax, and the other one means run away.
And in the same token, though, you can be running from your life into a place, and so you're retreating to a retreat.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Right. So there's all of these words, and words have power, and I love them. I make sure I try to help people understand the words that they use. I hear people saying, well, I just need to release that energy. And I'm like, I would never say that.
Release. Exactly. Because it means lease it again. Take it on again. That's another word that we
got
talked
people
about.
out there going, I'm going to release this entity from me. Well, it's just going to come back with a new contract. Just like if I had to release a car or an apartment, I'm getting the same apartment with new details, right? So yeah, words have power. Totally. And that power in the word creates images and emotions in the subconscious mind, which is directly responsible for the way we behave in the world. So understanding that deeper perception of what we're getting, beginning to analyze it, moving inside of the self, understanding, it gives us the opportunity to create.
And like Amen and Amun, you know, if Amun did have some responsibility for dark agendas, and we're saying Amen every time we're praying.
Amun Ra is what it was. It was Amun Ra. That's his word used like that in that particular sense. And it's the same thing that happens is when the divine feminine gets suppressed. It's the beginning of corruption, and it always has been. And or when anything is suppressed, it's the beginning of corruption. It actually is projecting a specific fear that the divine feminine is too powerful. Right? So the fear was, we'll just shut it down. But that's not really the appropriate direction, not at all. So we all possess both divine feminine and divine masculine energy. And really, it's about balance.
Balance, totally.
It's about balance and understanding the words we use, the context in which we use them, and the verbiage. I'm very into Peter Hyatt's work, and he does a statement analyses. So how a person phrases a word, where they put conjunctions and the main subject in the sentence is it's very revealing as to where their information comes from and the level of truth in it. So if I were to say, I went to the store to pick up some milk with my friend Jim, what I've created between I and my friend Jim is total distance of the sentence. So I'm distancing myself. So all of a sudden you begin to see the changing in the energy. I do that with every single word all the way through. In statement analyses, it's the same thing law enforcement does. I use it for witnesses to the phenomena so that we can get accurate information. But you can apply it to everything so that we can glean deeper understanding of the verbiage that we're using, because it's important. Just like the question on how do we differentiate between the corruption of these symbols and how they used to be. And it is doing your work, doing your understanding, and doing all of your homework, going beyond the academia of what they want you to know, but move into what is hidden, because therein lies the truth.
Yeah. It's a fascinating subject.
Yes.
It is. And then also we move out of mainstream trends, and we move out of pop spirituality and faux spirituality and all of those erroneous journeys that will constantly lock you into repeat themes, because of course you're locked into a distraction rather than an authentic and genuine journey of transformation and evolution. So we do have to mature a bit during these current times.
Grow up and do our work.
And I think it's really interesting. Apply consciousness training to the way we detect truth in our lives, in our ordinary conversations. Then metaphysics and synchronicities and quantum downloads are at the heart of our daily life, which means we're then moving into next level of evolution, you know, and then we do move into embracing an embodiment of ascension. And then with it comes this next level communication, and, you know, the way we do see that frequency, thoughts and feelings are relating to the way that we are manifesting our reality. So we have the alchemist as the archetype or as the avatar at the heart of our lives. You know, and that's interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and then we can play the false matrix. You know, we can really play it and we can outperform it, because then we're masters on reality and we can respond to.
And we can have a body. I mean, it's incredible to have a body and experience the third dimension and all of the things that we get to do using all of the senses to interpret, you know, sight, sound, olfactory, all of them. I mean, this is how we operate. But however, when we move out of the third dimension and we're no longer embodied and we don't sense time or space, we just move into this flow, light years between your eyes. This is when we move and experience something incredibly beautiful, peaceful, unconditionally loving. And it has its place. And so does being in the third dimension. And I think part of the problem in our spiritual movement and with the Ascension is that we have people going, I'm not from here. I don't belong here. I don't fit in. And that's heartbreaking on one hand. And there's no need to separate yourself, because no matter what dysfunction you have, you do fit in. And you are here. And in this moment, you're human. Whatever else you're tied to, I can accept that. But they need to accept their humanity. They need to accept their third dimensional. They need to honor the human as much as we're honoring so many of the extraterrestrials that they haven't yet been able to conjure, to manifest physically. So we have to understand that all of these energies that we're dealing with are real. These things, and we need to do our work, understand what we're looking at. It's a time now to educate ourselves. I pulled my son out of high school, and because he was presenting material that was accurate and correct, and the teacher was saying, I have to mark it wrong because it's against our curriculum. They literally had to mark the right information wrong, and he had to give the wrong answer to get it correct. I draw the line and pulled him from the school system and let him finish at home. I mean, we have to be careful, because that scenario is applicable to the entire education system in the way society is built now. We need to flip things and start from that higher energy. Just shake off all of the negativity and move forward.
Yeah. I pulled my son from school also.
Yeah.
Much younger though. Third grade.
I wish I would have did it earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. It's once you leave that system, you really start to awaken to a lot of false truths that are presented as the truth. You know, it's
right. Well, in the person's sovereignty and their ability to parent is slowly being turned over to the state.
Yeah.
And so we can't lose the divine feminine, and we certainly can't lose our ability to parent.
Especially this state, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very important. You know, the people have to step into their power, heal the wounds, open their mind to a higher understanding, a higher love, and hold hands, move forward. Nobody's alone here.
Yeah. Well, listen, you ladies, it's been amazing. We're at 10:22.
Oh my.
Did we lose Tracey? Or just her video?
Goodbye.
She phased out. Come back on so we can say goodnight. This has been so wonderful.
Bye.
I want to thank you both.
Thank you
so much. I'm really looking forward to learning more from both of you at Avatars of the Earth Gathering in just 10 days in Mount Shasta. So you guys have to make it up there if there's any way possible. Anyone in the audience, if you don't have plans to get to Shasta, you need to get up there. It's September 27th through the 29th, and you can learn more at avatarsoftheearthgathering.com. And Laurie, where can people learn more about you?
truehypnotherapy.com. That's the best way. Just check out my website.
Okay.
And feel free to hit me up on any of the social medias.
Awesome. And Tracey, where can more people learn about you?
So tracyash.com or Ancient Intelligence Mystery School.
And Avatars of the Earth Gathering.
And Avatars of the Earth Gathering.
In case you didn't know. So thank you both so much. This has really been an epic conversation, and I feel like it was really special and divinely guided, and one that will hopefully go down in herstory.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Of course. I hope to have you both on the show again soon. So for everyone, if you haven't already, please like this video if you enjoyed the conversation tonight, and also hit the little bell so you can get notified of our next show. And please find us on Facebook at the Ascension Sessions and on Twitter at Ascension Sesh. And of course, right here on YouTube. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Bye.
Good night.